No, just give me a name. You always do.
Just what?
But all right, I'm here with Jeff, Cassie, and
Lou.
Craig, and anyways, we just watched Amarcord, and I'm going to get these guys' expert thoughts on the movie. Just first, I just want to go around and see everyone's initial impression of it, starting with Cassie.
Okay.
I'm Cassie, actually.
Shut up. I don't know. It wasn't really what I expected. It was incredibly juvenile, but other than that, it reminded me of a lot of things. It reminded me of Babes in Toyland.
That makes sense, actually.
It was like watching a series of postcards through the whole movie. Not just because of the content, but because, I mean, the density of the characters even. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it.
I think you put it quite well, actually. Craig, whatever your name is. Craig, you go.
Whatever my name is. I don't know. It just felt like a 60s cartoon, but with
Cartoonish.
real life.
Oh, definitely
characters.
cartoonish. It's Looney.
Like you said, Looney Tunes, which is fairly accurate.
I like to view Grandisca as
I think
as like
Looney
the
Tunes
proto-fascist Bugs Bunny when she's up in Bugs is up in drag. That's how I like to imagine Grandisca.
I'd say Looney Tunes was
Bugs Bunny and
fairly
drag.
better.
Bugs Bunny and fascist
Still
drag.
accurate.
Yeah. And Joey, what'd you think of it? You guys, I'm just calling you by your real names now. I give up.
It kind of reminded me of like 50s Hollywood, and this of like the dreaminess. It actually reminded me of A Star Is Born with Judy Garland.
Yeah.
Like very purposefully, you're on a Hollywood set.
Yeah.
Like it's very contrived. It's very staged, obviously choreographed.
Yeah, I don't know if contrived is the word
I
I'm
think
looking for, but staged.
Well, contrived like seems to have a negative connotation, but not in this respect because it was obviously contrived, so
exactly.
unreal on purpose.
intentional.
Now,
Like the hotel.
yeah, any thoughts on any specific segment? Because obviously, most of Fellini's films are made episodically or sequentially.
Oh yeah.
Man,
so I'm trying to figure out whose perspective, if there was one
That's
perspective.
an interesting question. Yeah, like who is the perspective of the film, and also who is Fellini in this film? Who is remembering, or is it a town remembering? Is it any specific person?
It's weird. At times, I think it was the boy. But then there's like scenes where he's not present at all. But
yeah, but those could be stories he was told.
right,
What's that guy's name that he reminds you of?
Michael Pitt.
Yeah, let's just call him Michael Pitt.
Yeah,
I was kind of thinking about that too. Like when I started thinking towards the end, it's like postcards, everything. When they're in the boats and at the end of the movie, the wedding and everything. It seems. I didn't put it into those terms, like wondering whose perspective it was, but it definitely seemed. I don't know how to put it in words right now. It was like watching something so detached.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it.
No, I understand, and of course, you think
I
back.
felt like I was in a store looking through somebody else's memories.
wow, this is so weird. So I was gonna say it reminded me of the fucking spiel by Lady Gaga, where she talks about memory and about how it's not that it's a lie, but that she creates her own memory,
Right.
and that's more authentic. And I just Googled what Amarcord means, and it says Amarcord is not memory, or if it is false memory, not fragments of what once was, but fragments of what is imagined to
Like
have
an
been.
idealization. Yeah.
Well, it's a Amarcord started off as a gibberish word that Fellini made up, but
exactly.
it sounds remarkably like another Italian saying that means I remember.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually a pitch-perfect analysis of the film, just by definition of the word.
No, I think that's perfect. Actually, one of the things I was going to say, when I was talking about going inside of a store and looking at somebody's memories, what I mean is it's almost like a scrapbook. So there's not really a full perspective there. And it reminds me of something that I put on Facebook a couple days ago it was a picture of FK Twigs and that guy from Twilight
Robert
going to the
Pattinson.
gala
Mm-hmm.
with trash, like walking down the street with trash. And it was funny because the perspective change when you think about
Oh my god, I didn't
rich
see
people
that.
going to a gala, it's like this big fantastic perspective that you have, but if you were to turn around, it's something totally, there's a reality to it, you know?
Is it
That's
on
not
your- Can I find it
clear.
on there?
I guess, huh?
Is it on here?
No, it's in a group. I'll show it to you later. Anyway, there's definitely like an idealized perspective, which makes it cartoonish. It makes it like a playground.
What I can't
Definitely.
shake is there was like deliberate symbolism at times
Yes.
with the animals.
I didn't pick up on that.
Really?
Really?
Well, there was.
The dogs
It just
and
seemed
everything?
like the white bull that came out of the fog
And the peacock.
and the peacock.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is that is actually specifically tied to Roman culture, because the white bull in Roman culture symbolized prosperity, fame. Specifically, if you see it in a dream, it means that you're gonna like move into this stage of like, I guess, prosperity. And then the peacock is tied specifically to the Roman goddess Juno. That was like the symbol tied with her, and then it like basically the eyes on the peacock's feathers symbolize the eyes of the stars and the gates of heaven. And I'm losing my train of thought, but it had to do with going to like the next life, I think, if I recall correctly. And then the fog, that was really interesting because fog, especially in a dream, represents that things aren't quite the way they appear.
Mhm.
So do you think that Fellini, because some of this symbolism seems to make sense in the context of the scenes, while others
Mhm.
are almost arbitrary,
Mm-hmm.
but thrown in for purpose,
Mm-hmm.
almost as if
Because the peacock appeared,
right before the wedding, right
Right.
before Gradisca's wedding.
yeah.
But the
No,
bull,
was that before
No, it
the
wasn't
mother
right
died?
before.
It was before the mother died.
Yeah.
it was before the mother died. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
which was, and it's a symbol of like the gates of heaven.
Wow.
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
We can't really unpack the little boy seeing the bull.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly didn't feel that deeply about like most of the scenes. Throughout the whole movie, it was just like everything normal that would happen just exaggerated. Like when the fog was happening, he was like, "Oh my god, I am lost. I can't even find my own house." And he was like, "Oh, but you're right in front of me." He's like, "Oh, I guess I am." And then the little boy runs off, and like he's scared as hell because the fog is super dense. So to me, that was just like the grandfather and the little boy. You know, in some ways, memories of a grandfather and a little boy can be similar, as where they're likely to over exaggerate things. It probably wasn't nearly that foggy.
Yeah.
And that bull wasn't probably nearly that white.
Well, it's just
That bull was
yeah.
super white.
I think
Well, that's
a
what's
lot
just
of
so
what we're
wild
talking
is because
about.
it showed figures and it shows like the car passing and everything was like silhouettes and hard to make out.
Mhm.
And then
Well,
the
everything was supposed
bull
to be scary.
appears like the fucking flaming bush.
Yeah.
Like it was like
super clear.
it was
Same with
like
the peacock.
yeah, it was like here I am.
Yeah, everything
Like,
was so
Yeah, but just
vague.
What I think is like if you take every scene individually and just imagine instead of watching it, someone's telling you it.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
exactly how they
That's
would tell
exactly
you.
it's
it.
like a
because
scrapbook.
it's
Mhm.
about how memories are
Mhm.
conjured.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
we don't remember
'Cause
things
it'd
as
be
they
like-
were.
It'd be like I was going through the fog and a car passed and there was like all these trees, but then this white bull. Like, see, the car
Well,
passed,
Spider
the
was
trees.
big.
It wasn't that out there
Yeah.
because it's not the important part of the
Exactly.
memory
We
at all.
don't remember life accurately. We actually
Which
remember it
makes a lot of
cinematically.
sense. Yeah, about the ocean and everything. The way that was.
We remember it theatrically. Like it's
But,
all play.
God.
One thing I wanted to say was like the motorcycle guy seemed to transition things. Like every time something was changing, like he would just like zoom by.
Throughout the movie?
Yeah, like when scenes would change to other scenes and stuff like that. He did it quite a few times. I just want to know if there's like a
It's
reason.
really hard for me to like pick out patterns in movies like that.
Oh, there are a lot of patterns in here, and you
Yeah.
pointed out that
Unless-
He's good
everyone
at that.
Unless he's
really
just
good at
like the
patterns.
red ball
Does
of
he?
the dream or something, you know, if you know what I mean.
that most people wear the same kind of outfits, and even
Yeah.
even when Gradiska changed hers when she was like the outfit she was wearing in the movie theater is the same outfit she's wearing in
The snow.
That's a slightly different outfit in the snow, I believe, but
Yeah,
it's the same one
she-
she's wearing when she's in the race car fantasy with
Yeah.
the boy.
Yeah.
So like that
And then
fantasy,
she frequents the white dress
she does.
with the red scarf.
Mhm.
She's some Nazi Barbie doll. You gotta love her. But
yeah, it was funny when she's like in red head to toe.
Yeah.
I don't know why
Exactly.
it reminded me of like the great whore in the Book of
Oh my
Revelation.
god. The Whore of Babylon?
Yeah,
she's a
that's what it reminded me of because like it's all about like temptation and like being led astray from like the faith and from fascism, and like Gradiska is just like waltzing around the town and she has everybody like fawning after her and
Yeah.
like
But
she's
no,
like
she was fascism.
She was fascism?
Yeah. I mean, look at her. She's
I think
Like-
she's the opposite, but I think
No,
she was
no.
infatuated with fascism.
I
Think-
just feel like she was like
But we saw fascism
the
in the film.
attractiveness of it or something. I don't know,
But
because-
there would have to be a
Because if you're
uniform
talking about like
attractiveness,
lust and
she
all that,
was-
then the fucking chick who wore green all the time would be the lust character.
No, that she's so obviously the.
She's really confusing to me. Her
Well, she was
presence
the
in
town
movies-
nymphomaniac. She was almost like the village idiot. Her and the Cheyenne, the guy who just tells a bunch of white lies about sleeping with the 30 concubines.
Yeah.
Like those are the town idiots of the film.
Mm-hmm. No, she
I
didn't.
definitely call Gradiska, like a fascist Barbie doll. Definitely, I don't call her any way representative
Yeah,
of the
Volpina-
party.
Volpina's didn't come across as a symbol of lust for me at all.
No,
Especially because like her like
exactly.
like it sounded like borderline demonic.
Yeah.
Like
Like she was in constant
It's really
exorcism.
yeah, yeah.
And she wasn't like that representation of like the stereotypical like European curvaceous,
Yeah.
woman like the rest of them. She's kind
Yeah.
of a wacko. And every time she went up to somebody, they were like, "Oh, you need to go home.
Yeah,
There's some
exactly.
cats
yeah.
here."
But I do love when the crazy uncle was in the tree and the son was like, "Hey, Dad,
Oh my God.
you want me to go get Volpina?
Yeah.
Like, just get this over with." It's a pretty
Um,
good idea. But since we're on the subject of talking about the function of women in the movies, does anybody have any what do you think of Fellini's depiction of gender in this film of men and the women? As, what do you think?
The whole movie really felt like I think it was from that boy's point of view because it was all about like coming of age and like voluptuousness and
Definitely.
uh,
When things are larger than life, like her sex appeal was larger than life, I understand that.
and that girl, that one woman that he
The
The
cigarette.
cigarette. Oh my
lady,
God.
yeah, she
Yeah,
was
definitely.
larger
My
than life.
favorite shot is when she like backs off of him, or he puts her down, and then you see a shadow
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
back of the
That shadow
wall.
got huge.
Oh my god!
And I
she's
love
so
at the end the boy loses all his strength. He can't open the metal door.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. But so is Fellini saying that
Suck it, don't blow, you idiot.
it's good to have this kind of like frozen treatment of the women that fostered
Yeah.
your
They're
libido
all-
as a child.
And every single one of them is cardboard. Every
Yes.
single one of them. And it didn't hit me until they were the scene with the concubines.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're not like people. None of
The
them.
concubines are
Mhm.
completely interchangeable.
Oh my
Even the
gosh.
mom isn't.
No.
She's
No,
she's
they're all,
very
like,
much a
very-
caricature.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's really the right word. They're
Mhm.
caricatures of various like types of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I was thinking about whether or not that could be extended to everybody in the film.
Yeah, I
That's
was
what
gonna-
we're-
I was
because the men
actually
weren't
just
given
getting-
that much more.
Yeah, I
depth.
was just getting ready to say I don't think there was like character development for anybody in the film.
No,
No.
they were all pretty much flat.
except maybe the boy. He's like the only one that you see any kind of like progression with. But then what's weird is that he is almost completely left out of the final scene
Yeah, he
of
left.
the wedding.
But maybe
Yeah.
that's the point of it. He's not there anymore. His memories are done.
It was so weird because I thought for sure the way it was so eerie. The way he like wakes up and he's in white and everyone's like in all black. I thought it was gonna be some like crazy twist where he was dead.
Oh wait, that's like symbolic.
Yeah, because it's just weird because it was like no one was talking to him and like he's just walking through the house all kind of eerie in his like white nightgown and like everyone's like dressed in black and mourning and he doesn't know what's going on. Like there was like some kind of. It's strange that nobody like woke him up. Like he just woke up on his own and like walks out of the room and like, oh, your mother's dead.
Yeah, he's still a child with a smile.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, I mean, like it's definitely not out of place for him to be in a white, sleeping gown and everyone be in black because everyone found out they were like, oh, I gotta immediately put on black clothes now.
I was thinking about that. That was very strange.
That whole movie, like everything that they did was very practiced.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which was pretty funny.
That's what he was saying.
It's almost
about
like
contrived.
Exactly.
But there was
it's
like
almost
a
like
realism
memory
to
you've
it.
thought about several times, almost to
Yeah.
the point where like even your memory takes on the form of like Baudry opera or like cabaret, like bad cabaret,
But it was like realistic to a point because like the kids were completely just.
And that's where it gets interesting because there are actual scenes of real sincerity, of real but even when it is a contrived, unreal, or
because a kid, like a little kid, would be stupid.
well, even when it is purposely misleading, it's still completely affectionate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and even when we're treating like the characters of the films as caricatures or as like self-mockery pieces, they're still done with like the greatest amount of love you can possibly have. I mean, even Volpina, I mean, you don't walk away from it in harsh judgment of her. She's just another player in this crazy stage of memory.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that I noticed too. Like in the beginning of the movie or the first like several scenes, I had this like compulsion to moralize particular characters. Or like I like this person because of this, or I don't like this person because of that. But it's all, I don't know, just nothing happened with enough depth for me to draw out their characters and judge them accordingly.
But that's fascinating to me in and of itself. Is
we spent
over 2 hours with these people and like, we don't hate them.
You don't hate them, but you also, like, I kind of don't sympathize with them either.
And we still don't know them.
Yeah.
Oh, we still don't know them.
That's really bizarre. It's done in a really, like, it seems really intentional, though. Like, it's not,
it is. Fellini didn't do anything that wasn't intentional.
They were pictures. Everybody in that movie were pictures.
But it seems almost more genuine that way, because when I think about my childhood and like kind of like the women who ruled it, or like the my friends in it, I mean, I'm probably imagining like trinkets or like little play like things that don't actually exist other than to serve this like one purpose of this one remembering this memory for this one reason. It's
That kind of reminds me of oh God, what's the word? It's something that Mention talks about all the time with Jung and like universal consciousness and stuff.
I know
and,
what you're talking about.
Archetypes? No, not necessarily,
well,
but just like things that
all the time.
Things that the associations that we always make with things. The thing that I keep thinking about right now is the like considering a memory of waking up and your mother being dead and everybody in your house is wearing black. Yeah. It's like a cliche almost that's associated with the situation. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I do.
I lost my train of thought. I don't know. I can't remember why I was bringing the universal consciousness thing into it. I guess because we all sort of make those associations in our memories without even, like, unconsciously, almost. I'm not really sure. I'm still trying to break it apart.
That's awesome. Actually, I like that input. Definitely. I guess my next question would be, what do you think Fellini's purpose was with making this movie? What do you think he was trying to communicate with his audience with this film?
I hate that question.
You've got to answer it.
I know, but I can't do it.
Like,
I'm such a firm believer in death of the author, almost out of laziness. Like, I can't. It's so hard for me to answer this question.
Well, there has to be.
Why did he make it? I don't.
And it obviously has a purpose, though.
Yeah, it has to.
Like a very metrical,
Why
like
make a 2-hour film?
I'm having war flashbacks to the Absurdism class, where it was like
I reinvented this class right now.
It's hard because I start asking like, what is art?
Craig, you take on this question then. What do you think his purpose was?
I feel like it's just a matter of Like, there's plenty of movies that analyze real life, but I feel like that was one of those movies, but an aspect of real life that we don't technically see, but we all experience.
It's like our fictive lives. It's like it is the lives that we live. It's just it's hard to explain.
It's
isn't it?
Yes, there's something so visceral about it that makes it like unbelievable to me that he was able to translate into film.
Exactly. Like,
it's hard for me to put my finger on it.
Oh, that's good. Fucking good, Craig. Good job, dude. I wish we could unpack that more. I'm sad.
I guess that's, people who make films like this, like they have a way of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like putting into some language things that the ordinary person can't at all. And it's something that you can like imagine. I don't know. It's so hard.
Something that it's because like it almost seems like, to me at least, I don't know about other people, but when I imagine something, it's never the way people usually talk about the way you imagine something.
Exactly.
People always say like, "Oh, I imagine
this
like
collective, like
this blah blah blah," and they
experience.
describe it as if they're seeing a picture. But I'm like, I never see pictures. Am I a fucking weirdo? Because
Exactly.
I don't imagine pictures in my head. I imagine
Yeah.
concepts, and that's pretty much what that movie was. Because everything was so vague to the point where you could almost impose your own ideas on these characters. Because
That's
they
interesting.
weren't that deep of
Like
characters.
Minions.
Yeah, you could just say, "Oh, I had an aunt like that once," and you're fair to say that because that
They're
character
tropes.
is not
They're
Exactly.
caricatures.
deep enough for you to really have that character be distinct and opposed
Right.
to like other characters.
It was weird because there was like a couple characters who like it seemed like, okay, are we like seeing it from their perspective right now? Like the little chubby boy,
Oh my!
like when he like right after Michael Pitt had like the vision of him with Girardiska.
Yeah.
He has his own like vision,
Yeah. Where he
And
calls
then-
out the girl and then says "screw you."
and then like has the vision of him being married to like Mussolini's fat flower head speaking to him.
Exactly. And one of the opening scenes with the teacher going perspective. You know why this
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
artist was so important in
Yeah.
Italy, because he invented perspective, and this film obliterates perspective. This
Wow.
film abandons
That's-
it.
I just thought of
And
something
part of
though.
that's something I thought of too, just very quickly,
Okay.
is that like a part of me likes to think that this is like the only way, if we're going with Michael Pitt being the main perspective, it's just the only significant thing that really happened was his mother Miranda dying.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is like the only way that he can remember it. He has to remember all of the false insincerity, all of the contrivedness to get to that point, because that
Mhm.
really is the only emotional climax of the film. And I kind of view our little fascist Barbie doll's wedding as more of a just it's like symbolic ending, because he's not even present in that scene, but they
Mhm.
speak of him as if he was just there.
Mm-hmm.
But he left it. He left like this little memory castle once he reached his mother
Yeah.
dying. Even then, that's
Wow.
not like a profound experience in the film. But that's maybe
Mhm.
the only way he can remember it, is if he remembers all of this other stuff, like
Mhm.
as fluff, to get to like, my mother died that year
Yeah.
too. And that actually, like, a woman who meant something to me, like more than these cardboard figures did,
Mm-hmm.
also
Yeah.
died. But I can only think of sucking on the cigarette lady's massive breasts. But I think that's an interesting thing. There's so many different ways you can go at it.
Yeah.
Because
See, it's difficult for me to use him as an
me too.
anchor for perspective.
Because
I
he
feel like that's
doesn't
a
work
compulsion
most of the
too.
time. Yeah.
No.
He doesn't work most of the time,
Right.
because we're also narrated by this guy who just speaks arbitrarily
Yeah, I was
about.
about to bring up like the narrator.
And
Like,
who
he
just kind
says-
of falls off.
So
He's almost more irreverent than any other character.
so
Yeah.
it
He
almost
says
makes me
nothing.
think like this was
Which
just
is crazy. You just like hit me between the eyes with that. That's insane. Even the narrator isn't even there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like the narrator isn't even a fucking narrator. He's
Yeah.
just a box.
Yeah.
He's just like a cardboard cutout of a human, like life-size.
Well, what was
Justin
freaky
Bieber or
was like
something.
for so much of the movie, he seemed like detached
Wow.
from like what was all going around him.
Yeah,
But then like
but intimate too. Like,
Yeah,
but he
and
also
then-
didn't care.
and then like he like started like interacting with other people in the setting, and then it was like,
Yeah.
what the hell's going on?
That is crazy to me.
That was
so
great
it's like
meta,
he has,
And
wow.
and now I'm like thinking like, okay, was this just supposed to be from our perspective, and we're just
another thing
That's
is
like it's like Pleasantville sincerity.
Yeah.
Like it's there, the sincerity's there, but it's not as there as I'm used to it being.
Yeah.
It's just it's like it's barely. How do I say this? Let me just think about this for a second. It's like having a bunch of gears together, except they're not creating any sort of machine.
That's so true. That's perfect, actually. Yeah.
They're there and they do what they mean to do.
Yeah, they
but
all have a
not,
necessary function.
They don't have a necessary function. That's it. That's perfect. That's what it is.
So it's like a prop.
Yeah.
I was gonna say earlier, while we were on the topic,
have we really been talking for 25 minutes?
Yes, this has been a good conversation, though. Gotta say,
this movie is like the perfect example, and it gives the perfect use of what you could say is a moving picture.
That's great too. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's how I feel too.
Because
it
really is like that.
Movie picture. And then got shortened to movie.
Because I don't remember. I think it was you or someone else. Someone said something about like the whole movie's postcards.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, so
Or
like it literally is that. It could be like someone flipping through pages, but we're watching in a movie as a movie instead.
It reminds me of Prisoner of Azkaban or whatever.
Oh my god!
In Harry Potter or whatever, he opens a newspaper and the pictures are moving. That's how I imagine like opening a scrapbook and each picture is these particular, especially at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Those pictures of her leaving and of all the children like running through the street, that was a postcard to me.
Yeah.
It was insane.
One of my favorite segments was when Gradiska went to see the prince at the Grand Hotel, and it's just a moment when the lights come on slowly and they're all standing there in Tableau. So right there, that is a picture coming light. Then they just move and they're just doing weird choreographed dancing routines.
Stage or something.
And Fellini's camera that entire time is almost like trying to gain perspective, because it's like no one did this story even happen. We're hearing already like a contrived story, but secondhand now from a guy who heard it from someone else. Like, so the camera's just moving up and down, and then it's just her posing.
He can't
in,
even remember what the story was
most
about.
bizarre ways, like she was biting her. You just imagine, like, I don't know, I just love that scene so much, but that's Tableau come to life, and most of it, there's a couple scenes that are like that, especially with the fascists, who I love are, like, Elmer Fudding it through the entire thing.
Yeah.
Even in the torture scene. Have you ever seen fascism tackled so lightly before?
Yeah.
No, I was thinking about that too. Like, I was thinking there must not be, that's another thing, the gear's not serving a purpose. There's no statement being made about it. It's just there. It's part of the world that they live in. It's part of
exactly.
They're not trying to paint it as necessarily like good or bad.
What was really eerie, like, was them like running, like they were all like literally just like running down the street, and they're all just like smiling, like as they're running.
And they're speaking to the camera about all like the Mussolini's balls are this big, or like actual statistical like values.
There was something that reminded me of. There was like I don't even know.
Wow.
There was something like really familiar to me. I don't know. It actually almost reminded me of like freaking Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory for some reason.
Yeah.
Like there's a scene in that movie that it's like making me think of, and like.
Can't put your finger on it.
Wait, is that the Gene Wilder one, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Fucking Gene Wilder.
The only real one.
So do I. That's really, the more that we talk about it, the more it sticks out to me that there's no value judgments in the movie whatsoever.
None of anything. Like
that's so
imagine
strange.
how difficult that is to pull off for any artist, not to make any statement about, and he's talking about heavy things.
Yeah, that's, wow. I'm super impressed.
I'm very impressed by that. That's so great. Perspective. I love it so much.
Let's go back to purpose. I want to know. You didn't talk about that.
Yeah, what do you think Fellini's purpose was with making this movie? What do you think was his goal?
Oh, my God.
Tell us, Joey.
Do what I've been doing. I've just been blathering. And then it makes sense after a while.
So,
stop thinking.
I think, I can't see all now, so.
See, it doesn't take any of my advice. Does anyone really have a purpose? Oh my God! Get out!
What about you?
Leave.
His purposes.
I think his purpose was simply memory.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much what I was going for. But I wanted to try to add something
Because
to
obviously
it.
there are no grand statements, but I think it was
wow.
just achingly devoted to memory.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
memory is a
Like,
religious
make out and reveal
experience.
spaces.
That's
I
amazing.
kind of like that because most people would be like, "Oh, I want to make a movie. Well, what is it going to be about? About the way we remember things?" And you're like, "Oh, so you're going to like romanticize this, blah 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 blah." And it's like, no, I'm just going to like
You
make a
pulled it off
movie about how
super
we
well.
remember things.
It
Because
really
that's the
did.
thing too. Our experiences and how we remember them are not necessarily full of fucking statements
No.
and points at all. It's just they're just experiences.
That's so awesome. I love you guys right now.
I love you guys.
I didn't know how well we were going to unpack this, but we did it pretty well.
I thought I was going to have nothing to say.
I'm gonna have to like sleep on this, and then we're gonna have to make another recording because the more that we talk, the more. And it's funny because it
We
seems
should like
so.
watch another movie.
It almost seems mundane.
We should
that-
watch like another movie and then make like a comparison.
Yeah, that's
We
a good
will.
idea. It seems
Let's do it.
Mundane.
Let's do a Greg Araki
the
movie.
reason why I think it's difficult.
I got mysterious skin.
Oh God! The reason why
We
I
should
think
watch
it's
the Doom
difficult. Shut the
Generation.
fuck
Talk
up.
about mundane.
Shut the fuck up.
That was an
Sorry.
Let's
interesting
not talk about
word.
other movies. We're talking about this one.
Yeah.
So listen. It's strange to me to limit it to that because it seems like such a mundane concept.
Memory.
It seems like when you say, I'm going to make a movie about memory, or his point was to convey memory, like it seems mundane, but when you actually experience it and see like what exactly he's portraying about it, it becomes something, I feel like I should have more words.
The
But I
movie
don't
made
think
me
that I
feel
do.
disoriented.
Oh, me too. By the way, you guys, I watched it last night.
Oh, Jesus.
So I could write my essay for it that I read earlier on the podcast. It's just so I can write my essay. So I've now seen it 5 times
And like total?
in total. But I just saw it like for the first time maybe a year or 2 ago.
Right.
But it's just so enigmatic.
Yeah.
That's the best word for Fellini. What did you think of Fellini's style? I know this is most of your first Fellini film. What did you walk away with thinking of the man's style, the man's eye, the man's place in cinema history?
Oh, I loved it. I loved the choreography. And I don't mean just like when people were dancing. I mean like...
Which there was plenty, actually.
Yeah.
He got it all.
But like the placement of everything and like the people's movements contrasted against music.
Yeah. I love the
And-
scene of the boys peeking into the Grand Hotel and then dancing by themselves, all of them
Yeah.
all caught in their own little wonderland there.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
There were certain things that really stuck out to me that were really like subtly strange. Like one being the woman's shadow, the cigarette.
That was so
Some
good. It
shadow in
was
the back of the
daunting.
wall.
It was like mammoth. It was like
Yeah,
I was like, you wanted this
And
little
also
boy, you're
really-
about to get it, and you're gonna fucking
know.
suffocate on this.
but also
like, you're
that
going to
thing
eat
that
your
happened in
words.
the beginning when they were all going through their classes and everything after the perspective
Yeah.
scene. That guy raised up his cane and the camera shifted.
Yeah.
That was wild to me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm gonna have to watch more of his movies because honestly, like, while watching it and trying to pin down a style or something like that, I couldn't get other Italian movies out of my head,
Right.
particularly Pasolini. Like, I kept
Okay.
thinking about all of the imagery and everything made me think about Teorema,
But-
especially the scene with the uncle in the tree. And
You
the
did
nun.
mention that, and I definitely got that too.
Yeah.
But would you be interested in seeing another Fellini film after watching this one? Or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Possibly. Do you think maybe you could come up with like a short list and we can pick one?
I mean, definitely.
We should watch
I
it
have to.
now.
I want to ask this
8.5
question.
minutes.
I want to
Okay.
ask a question now. This is my podcast.
I like
now.
Amarcord more than 8.5, but I'm
He's
alone in
hijacked.
that.
I'm gonna say my favorite scene, and then I want everyone to say their favorite scene. My
That's
favorite
good.
scene within the whole entire movie was the crazy uncle saying, "I want a woman," over
I
and over
love
again in the
that.
tree. That is my favorite
For some
scene.
reason, that like hits me hard. I don't know why. Maybe it's like the secret desperation inside me. Like I don't want to end up like that.
Yeah.
Like, but I could see myself just going crazy one day. and
I'm
just-
really upset because I feel like
I'm doing it
I'm not
wrong. That's what you
there.
said.
I'm
That's
not there,
hilarious.
but I'm climbing that tree,
Yeah,
and that's upsetting.
it was
You're
like
climbing the tree.
I'm climbing
He's
that tree.
climbing
it was
that
beautiful,
front.
man.
I'm not crying out yet,
It was
but I'm
just-
fucking climbing that tree.
It was just.
I need my midget nun to
And
come and
that
save
was just
me.
like
Say that.
She was. Oh my my small nun. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say.
And that was
it's not offensive.
That was a grandiose, absurd statement that he did, but like I felt
I
like
have
it
no
had
idea
so
why
much
that lady
heart
came
in it.
in.
Like
I want a woman. Oh gosh, and when the
But what
father
else do
was
you
crying.
Yeah, the father
that
was
made it
crying,
different
like,
for
just
me.
listen to my boy. He's 42. He just really needs a woman.
He's like, it's a very understandable thing to cry about.
When I was 42, I was constantly...
What is he talking about?
He kept doing that, yeah, like...
Oh, he was talking
my
about...
My father's name was Big Meat.
It. His dad's name was Big Meat.
Yeah.
Yo.
Hey, a wet bride is a lucky bride.
Yeah.
God. I can't believe.
But that's a great scene.
It was a really vulgar
That is
movie.
a great scene. Like,
Maybe,
I think there's so much to unpack there.
It's so crazy. Like
women can just drive. Lack of women can drive you insane,
was
and
like,
over an abundance of it
funny.
can drive you to memory.
Sisyphus or something.
Yeah, I was gonna call it a Sisyphean, like just yell.
It's funny because like some of the statements were like shocking, but it was weird to think that this movie was made in the 70s.
Yeah.
So like that kind of talk.
I forgot
that kind of talk was acceptable because people were wanting to be like shocking and
But
yeah, it was
European.
acceptable, but it was also
You're
so
also
innocent
European.
at the same time.
But it was
so it's
it
like,
was
yeah, you're gonna go fuck each other, like.
yeah, but
I
it was
don't know.
just weird though seeing it set in like
exactly.
Yeah.
I agree
era.
with you about that, but like I feel like it was so innocent sometimes. Like it was almost a children's movie, and then we get the cigarette lady scene, and it totally like oh wait,
Yeah,
this
it came
isn't a
out of
child.
nowhere for
like,
me.
Like who also. Oh no! I'll ask this question after we go around with favorite scene. But my next one is: who do you think Fellini was making this for?
Okay.
Like, what fucking audience do you think he was making
that's a
this
hard
for?
question.
But what
But
other
what's your
scenes have we
favorite
even
scene
gone over?
in the
I
movie?
have a couple of them, and they might be obvious. I really liked the scene with the fascists, particularly when the music started playing and everybody scurried around.
Yeah, the tableau. Yeah, it's my favorite.
But that whole sequence was really one of my favorites, with the wedding and everything. Just the theatrics, like most of the scenes that were incredibly theatrical, like the one inside of the hotel. That was another one that was my favorite.
Fantastic.
Jared Leto was just cast as the vampire Lestat in the new Interview with the
Jesus
Vampire.
Christ, people, everybody, please get out of his asshole. He doesn't deserve it. He's a lunatic. Anyway,
Next
what
favorite
was your
scene.
favorite scene?
Hands down, the scene that keeps replaying in my mind is when Michael Pitt was in the movie theater.
Oh yeah,
That was
I
a great
forgot
scene.
about
He
that.
kept
Are
switching.
you
That
looking
was-
for something? Like,
That kind of reminded me of David Lynch.
Yeah, it did. I think that's why I liked it so much because I'm a Lynch fanboy. But
The whole time that he was talking about what he was
Nah.
thinking about when he was with the priest, that was another one of my favorite scenes.
yeah, that was great.
The boy with the priest.
And they fucked it up. Fellini
And the-
fucked it up.
Oh, the
like,
priest scene was pretty
it was all in his head, but then he says, like, I didn't know people kissed like
Yeah.
that with their
Oh.
tongues. Like, he was actually saying some of it.
Yeah.
Like, it was weird.
well, that's
That
what
was-
that's what really
that,
made
no, that is on purpose. I didn't mean fuck
That's-
it. I meant, like, he did it on. He fucked
Yeah.
it up
that's
on
what
purpose.
that also fucked up the perspective because
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
because it was kind of like okay, what is he
It's
saying
so
out
hard
loud?
to
But then he
What is
said he didn't tell any of that.
And then, yeah, exactly.
But I wanted to say, like, the movie was really confusing to me because they broke the fourth wall in very
Arbitrary ways.
and it was very unexpected, very
Yeah.
unnecessary
like
moments.
when the other boy like gets like shooed by the priest.
Yeah, that
He's
was
like,
hilarious.
and then
That's
he
one
just
of my
looks
favorite
right
laughs.
at the-
Then there was
right at
another
the
scene
camera.
where what's her name? The really beautiful woman. I can't remember what her name was.
Grandiska.
Yeah, Grandiska.
Which means whatever
she-
you desire.
She was walking
Wow.
down the road and
She's
she
really
was
cool.
like walking all beautifully and then she just looks at the camera and like kind of looks at the camera like, look how beautiful I am.
Exactly.
And then like moves on and it's like,
And that is, of
Why?
course, the great Italian actress Magilla Noel, who was also in La Dolce Vita and Satyricon, a big Fellini actress. She was cast last minute in this movie. She wasn't supposed to be in it, and I can't imagine her as anyone else.
Yeah.
She fully captured the cartoon. Like I said earlier,
Oh my
Bugs
God.
Bunny and drag. She
Like
did it.
Jessica Rabbit or whatever.
Yeah, that's a lot better.
The
Maybe I should go
that's
with
what I
that.
thought of immediately too.
Yeah, it's
I know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
I
love-
think Bugs Bunny and Drag is really.
Yeah, I just love the movie theater scene. I love the way he is like so nervous
boyish, yeah.
and boyish, and she's just like sitting there in all her power, like with
Like a piece of cardboard?
with a cloud of like cigarette smoke enveloping her, like the fucking Shekinah glory,
Oh my God.
and like he's just like inching like closer and closer to her, and then like he like finally like sheepishly like reaches out and touches her, and then she's like, "Can I help you?" type of thing.
Exactly.
And then he was just like, "Oh fuck, I sat there like an asshole." Like,
Yeah. Wow, I forgot about that. When we had an intermission, I like compartmentalized different parts of the movie.
Exactly. I probably
feel
should
we
have had
should
that
wrap this
intermission
up.
because now we think about two separate
Yeah.
halves.
I like it
No.
though.
It was just really crazy. Like, it just reminds me of like the first time you delve into that, like trying to like establish like your first physical connection with
Except
somebody.
it's so big, like
Yeah.
it's so theatrical.
Yeah.
With Jessica Rabbit in an old like smoky theater, and he walks up to this grown ass woman, and he's in high school, and then
Yeah.
he reaches up her dress, and
Yeah.
she's like, "Are you looking for something?" Like,
Yeah,
it just is so. It reminds me of Amanda Palmer. It's just
Yeah.
out there. I don't know. It's staged. It's like on stage or something.
Exactly.
But one of the other things,
and it was an
I wanted
empty
to-
theater too. It was like picturesque.
Yeah, that was it. And she knew that he was doing it, and it was
Mhm.
so, I don't know. It's just unrealistic. It's
Mhm.
it's totally unrealistic. It's like fantasy.
I just have a few more questions. Craig did point out that we've been talking for a good amount of time.
Okay.
But I have a few more questions because we're doing really well. You a lot better than I thought we would.
I would
guys.
let this go on as long as we wanted if I didn't have to work in 6 hours.
Okay, the question is, well, it was about who do you think Fellini's target audience was with this? Who do you think Fellini was trying to communicate with? Not what he was trying to communicate, but who do you think he was talking to? Or what part of
Millennials.
it?
What?
What did you say?
No.
He said millennials.
Anyways, I feel like he was. Do you want to know who he was trying to talk to, or who you think we think he reached?
I want both.
Both? Okay. I think he was basically just putting a statement out there for everyone to grab onto, because it's something that we can all understand because we all experience the idea. But I don't feel like he met. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that that movie is not that popular at all.
It's considered one of the greatest Italian films ever made.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Fellini is
It was-
really,
It just doesn't
like,
seem like the kind of
it was-
movie
it
that
was
people
a-
would grab onto.
Well, it was a critical box office failure.
Yes.
okay. Well,
Yeah, I
that's
remember
kind of
reading
what I
that.
meant.
And as was Citizen Kane, so
Yeah, right.
It's not. So it's not like
It's
not Transformers.
Yeah.
no,
Well,
no, but it's one of the most
I'm glad it's not
important films of the
Transformers.
'70s, let alone Italian films.
Okay.
Yeah.
But for the 70s, was it important in the 70s?
Yes, I mean that came before Scorsese made his big roles. I mean, all our American Italian filmmakers looked up to that film. Coppola, Scorsese.
For anyone listening, I'm the only person in here who doesn't actually read about films. I just watch them.
We're pulling him in slowly.
It's
Slowly.
I don't
Next
want.
week we're
I
gonna
don't
watch
want to.
Irreversible.
I
That
don't
was a
want to be.
ridiculous
I don't want to be a
question.
textbook kind of
And then we're gonna
film
watch
watcher
Solo.
because I feel like
Oh,
there's a
I
lot
wanna
of
watch
people
the
out
Doom
there. I want to be
Generation.
genuine and like not. I don't want to use big words to describe what I thought about the
That's
movie.
fine.
I just want to be visceral or whatever.
Do you
All
wanna
right, so
watch-
Craig
do you
wants to
wanna
be,
watch a scene from the Doom
uneducated
Generation,
about
or
it
do you
until
wanna
the
be-
very end. He doesn't want to know what neorealism means. He doesn't
Like
know what
I
surrealist is.
plan on even like directing in my future,
But anyway,
I don't want to
actually,
be.
blame me. That was a really
difficult.
difficult question to answer because I don't even know how to answer it. I don't even have an answer to that question. So you did pretty well. I would say that's a stupidly ambiguous question. I apologize.
Who was his target audience?
Yeah, who was his fucking target
I
audience?
mean, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to. It's really difficult.
It's a difficult ass question.
But-
I'm not tackling it,
I don't think there was.
I don't know. Maybe
and I'm not gonna say himself because that's too fucking.
the only thing I can
Convenient.
possibly think about that, and I know that it's not anywhere near far enough, is like, I don't know, people who grew up during that time period.
Exactly.
That's what it's nostalgic of, and it's a nostalgic fucking movie.
That makes me think though, like I don't think of target audience for anything. Unless it's like super obvious. Like, you know, if
That's
we make
because you're a white male, you are the target audience for everything.
Shut up. No, what I'm saying is like even when I think of stories, there's only one story that I have that I know has a target audience, and that's because it's shonen-esque, which basically means high action, story takes backseat kind of story, which means teenagers would like it. other than that, like, my stories don't ever have a target audience. There probably is one, but like I've never thought of that.
The target audience is yourself.
Well, yeah, and I just assume that other people will like it because it's good.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just kidding. I've never read.
Well, I'm not gonna sit here and think that like I'm a bad writer. That would be stupid. Any writer who makes great work and thinks they're not good is lying. They think they're good. They're just they're just getting brownie points off of modest.
The whole, like, you remember that whole lecture we had on the egoism of artists?
Oh,
you got to counterbalance that inevitability.
I know that I'm
by saying that.
Do you think that Fellini was an egotist by watching this film?
No shit.
Yeah,
they
definitely.
are, of course.
Oh god, I'm fucked up right now.
All right.
I don't think modest people make great movies.
When being a
modest people do. I would call Terrence Malick a modest director.
And like, what's really insane is like so many white cis gay guys are on here. Like,
all right, we're going off.
All right, just before we end this,
we're being recorded.
What was the question?
The question is, Gav. The question is, who do you think was his target audience?
I already answered millennials.
Did you? No, that's not your answer. Shut up. You're way like. Come on.
Who was the target audience for a 70s film? Oh, millennials. The people haven't been born for 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. You can do that. You can be like, this is for a future generation.
Yeah, like I said, death of the author. Like, it only matters what is in the film.
Because you know how you'd be.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
They wrote about the simulacrum in the fucking 60s.
Do you have another question?
Yeah. What did you guys think really quick of the structure itself? I know Craig might have found it trying sometimes. I remember you saying it felt like it was 6 hours. But it was mostly because of structure. It felt like a
really long movie because
we interestingly weren't given a narrative.
The pacing. Yeah, there was nothing to follow, so you weren't anticipating anything.
Right.
Exactly.
And anticipation always makes things faster. That's like, if you watch a movie 3 times in a row, the third time is going to be the fastest.
Right.
Even though, literally, it's
because you knew it would just fade to black, and then another spectacle. Because you're just waiting for the big thing. Happening.
Like, the small things fade away because they're unimportant now, because you already know that the big thing's going to happen next. But in this movie, it was just all the small things.
Yeah, there's not... Yeah, that's a really, really interesting way of putting it. You don't have, like, any launch anchor to mark.
No. Because, I mean, like, the mom died, and it was just kind of like, oh, the mom died, and then, like, the scene was over.
Not, like,
they did a funeral, but... It didn't last that long.
In fact, the funeral was the most tedious scene in the film if you watch it.
When did she even go to the hospital? Because it was like he was sick, and then she was in the hospital, and then she died, and then there was a wedding.
But it becomes tedium. It's interesting, like tedium on obviously on purpose. When I say these things that have negative connotations,
but it's kind of funny because that is how we remember things.
Exactly.
Like it would be like
not cinematically.
All I knew was I was sick, and then my mom was in the hospital, and now she's dead.
Not with a formula.
Not with a formula.
We don't remember things formulaically, but we do remember them theatrically.
Definitely.
What would have probably been something I would have done if I was going to make a movie based on memory was I would have probably done the movie in parts, and then see what I would have done is like an episodic movie with different stories, and then you put up. Like, basically, the way a memory tends to work, for me at least, is like, imagine you have this big wall. You know how people put pins and then they do strings and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Imagine, like, your memory is this huge pin that you just smash into the wall, and then a whole bunch of little strings coming off of it that you remember because of that big memory.
Yeah.
That's how I would have done the movie.
That's how anyone else would have done the movie, though. I think the fact that he didn't have an anchor or any pivotal moment or anything that
there's nothing tying everything together.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm saying like everything would be everything would be confused. Like, but this happened too, and then this happened. There would be no timeline for my movie.
You know, that reminds me of David Lynch. The way that David Lynch does films is it's like there is this big important thing that's going on above our heads, but these are all the things that are attached or associated with it.
Definitely.
One of the things that you made me think of from saying things are episodic, is that you?
We both said the word.
Even within these particular sequences, it's interesting to me that they weren't so obviously disconnected. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they weren't. What's the word that I'm looking for? encapsulated. They weren't.
Did y'all notice that a whole
Okay.
year passed in that movie?
Yeah, I noticed that by the end.
It went from like winter
But-
to winter, right?
Well, no, it
Spring
went from
to
spring to
spring.
spring because of the little things in the air.
What were you
That's the point. That
I'm trying to
drove
think
it
of the
past.
word.
Well, I mean, the movie.
It's not the sequence of the hotel is not like marked even necessarily by her meeting the prince and sleeping with him or whatever. It's somebody telling a story, and then other things happening during that sequence that aren't necessarily related to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're all happening within a particular place, but they're not all necessarily tied together.
Mm-hmm.
I just noticed that a couple of different times. It was odd.
Definitely, that's a good insight too.
Well,
I guess we've been talking for about an hour, so I don't know. Any final thoughts? We'll start with Joey this time. Final thoughts on the film?
what's your final thought?
I was just thinking about how the movie began with the burning of the witch and ended
I
with
forgot about
Gradiska being a bride.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That scene.
I liked in the beginning that it was a burning of a witch and the praise of and the worship of Gradiska. So it was
Yeah.
like it was praising a whore and burning a witch. It was pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah.
I forgot all about that.
And then she got married.
that movie. See, that
Yeah.
movie felt so long that every time you guys bring up scenes, it's like, whoa, that happened like forever ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. The burning of the witch was like a pretty dramatic opening. Like especially the way
Yeah.
they were like dancing
somehow I
around.
completely
Really
forgot
interesting
about
way
it.
to meet
And like
everyone.
something about the music just
Yeah.
the imagery was so like
We do have to bring up Nino Rota, who did the music for most
Yeah.
of Fellini's films. He,
there
It's
was
just
like
perfect.
something there's a word I'm looking for. It was just like something was slightly amiss. Like there's like a word I'm looking
something's
for. but-
disjointed.
You said eerie.
No. It's similar to eerie, but just like kind of like when you're like
Uncanny?
no.
Hmm.
But basically like there is like a dissonance.
Mhm.
Right.
It was thinking
Okay.
that too.
Yeah.
And Craig, what were your final thoughts?
I thought it was an interesting take on the opposite of what I usually try to look for in animation. It's what animation would be if it was done with actors instead of what a movie could be if you did it with animated characters.
It's very interesting, yeah. I get the animated appeal from it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Because like the scene that pops out in my head the most when I think of like what makes it similar to a cartoon is when the guy gets angry, he always bites on his hat and like jumps
Yeah.
around and like
Mhm.
he moves, he like throws his arms to make his jump higher.
There
I
are
was like,
times
that's not how it works.
There are times where it reminded me of like the Three Stooges or
Yeah.
God, the guy that did all the crazy stunts, but they were real stunts.
Evil Knievel.
No,
I
the-
know
the-
what I'm
on the same
thinking.
page.
the old movie, the actor.
Charlie Chaplin?
Yeah,
Or Buster Keaton.
no, it was Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, because he did like so many stunts.
He did
He
like crazy
sat in
stuff.
an
stuff.
So many
airplane in
more.
The Great Dictator. Right? He fell out of an airplane.
Is that
or
who I'm
something.
thinking of?
Buster Keaton did a lot more stunts.
Like
We should
someone.
watch that.
so
We
did
should
Harold
watch The Great
Lloyd.
Dictator. We
Yeah.
should watch fascist movies.
Yeah, let's have a fascist
Let's do it.
week, you guys.
I'm down.
I'm gonna run an animation week one of these.
And
That's
what
a
are
good
your
idea.
final thoughts on the film?
You know, I don't. It's so hard for me to get into things that don't have like these days that don't have like a clear cut narrative because it's so much work. But I liked it. I like it more since we've sat down and talked about it. What? Oh, Charlie Chaplin. Yeah.
That's just a
Anyway.
really funny like comparison of like.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, I like it more now that we've sat down and talked about it, and I've realized exactly how I view it as a whole. I definitely want to watch other Fellini movies, like
Mhm.
8.5, and I want to see Satyricon.
Yep.
I assume that they're not all full of fart jokes.
Oh, no.
Not that it bothered
This
me. or
one
is
anything,
the only
but
one
it's
that
just
was.
surprising.
Fantastic.
This one is the only one that was, actually.
That's funny because you know, like
he-
I
I
have
quite
friends who
enjoyed the
love
fart
Fellini,
jokes.
and I've heard his name so often, and everybody tells me you need to watch 8.5, and I watched like 15 minutes of it. Okay.
8.5's fantastic, but I think that Amarcord and La Dolce Vita are better films.
I just didn't expect
Wait.
somebody to say, "Come on, let's sit down and watch and discuss an Italian movie," and for it to be so juvenile, and for the juvenile nature of it to be so like relevant to what was.
Oh my
happening.
That's
God.
why
I've seen La Dolce Vita. I saw it at the freaking Polk Theater with Amanda.
Oh,
Oh,
I knew that
I
sounded.
just-
that's so weird. I almost brought up that movie, and I was gonna like think like different scenes that it reminded me of, and wow, I didn't realize that was the movie you've been referencing this whole time.
Yeah.
I freaking watched it like.
Yeah, he made that in 1960, 13 years before this one. So, but that was his first little steps into surrealism, into what would later just be.
Yeah,
linear.
I totally watched Little. See, I wasn't. I don't know how I feel about that movie.
I think we should wrap it up.
All right, but
I just want to.
I liked
I
liked Amarcord way better than La Dolce Vita, to be honest.
I think both are fantastic.
Yeah, I really liked it. I think I might watch it again.
But I think Amarcord's better, and it's magical.
Yeah, no, I liked La Dolce Vita, but
La Dolce Vita is more like it's nihilism on film.
mm-hmm.
It's a 3-hour.
Right, my alley.
Well, it's the great nihilist abandoned. But did you want to
By
say
the
one more
time the
thing,
movie
Craig? Is that
ends,
what you want to
because she was saying like the fact that it was all juvenile, it makes me drive home more the fact that it was from that boy's point of view, because the movie seemed to progressively become more serious.
I refuse to make an anchor. I refuse it. Because there are no value judgments in the whole movie. There's no anchor for anything in the movie. There's no perspective.
Because for a moment I almost wanted to say like Gradisco was the anchor, but no.
There's no anchor.
There is none.
You have a compulsion, like
There's
after
no moral
watching,
absolute.
especially after watching like commercial, big budget films. Like I have a compulsion to say, this is who's telling this story. This is who it's for. This is what this is. Like this is who is remembering this. I refuse to do it with this movie.
Yeah.
It would almost be like missing the point somehow.
I feel like that enormously. I feel like it would be missing the point.
Well, that's amazing.
Exactly.
Right. Great thoughts.
Fascist week.
Fascist week.
Fascist week.
Mussolini wedding. Shotgun wedding, guys.
Yeah.
Mussolini shotgun wedding.
Bye-bye.